If you are starting out on this amazing instrument, the bass guitar, you want to stick around for this video because today I'm going to be covering the top 5 mistakes that I see beginners suffering from time and time again. And honestly, if you suffer from these mistakes, it's going to really slow down your progression on the instrument. And I'll just throw this in there as well. Some of you who aren't beginners will be suffering from these as well. So with that said, let's find out what they are. So mistake number 1 is a really simple one, but probably the biggest culprit for messing people up in the future as they progress on the bass, okay? And it's all to do with the positioning of the bass when you're sat down, okay? Because when you're just starting out, for the most part, you're going to be practicing sitting down. I do recommend that as well. You don't want to have a heavy bass hung around your neck all the time, okay? So you sit down, okay? And what most beginners do is when they sit down, check this out, my body is now flat to you, they will feel like, they're going to sit with their bass flat to their body. Because why not? Because that's what it looks like when you watch somebody on YouTube. It looks like they've got the bass flat to their body, but they haven't. Because if you have got the bass flat to your body like this, as I play, let's see what I have to do it's impossible really to play any higher up the neck than here. So all I need to do is push the bass out, okay? I always imagine myself sitting in a box, okay? So I'm sitting in this box. Here's the 4 corners. I want to get the neck of the bass and put it so it's sat in that corner. If I do that, okay, I can get right up here on the bass and my body isn't getting in the way. Now, if you see me on YouTube videos, you might be thinking, but the bass is always flat to the screen, right? And yes, it is. And that is because when I'm normally teaching like this, my body, look at it. So the center of my body is actually right here. And that gives me the ability to be able to play right up the neck so my body doesn't get in the way. So remember, get the bass, okay? Put it flat against your body and then push that neck out to around a 45-degree angle. And that's going to give you the best playing position for when you're seated and when you're practicing. So the second big mistake that I see beginner bass players make over and over again is actually not anchoring the thumb. I've seen people do this where they put it over here. Okay, it's actually over the back of the bass. I've seen people do this where it's kind of just floating in the middle of nowhere. It's up here. Like, I've seen all kinds of things, okay? Now, the rule of thumb, see what I did there? The rule of thumb is that the thumb should be anchored on something. And I recommend for beginners, if you are playing on the G, D, or A string, okay, so any of these strings, I want you to anchor your thumb right here on the top of the E string, just on the E string. There's the pickup, okay? And right there, that's where you want to anchor it. Now, what happens if you want to play the E string? Well, that's when the thumb should pop onto here, right there, okay? So it just pops up and rests on the E string. So a really simple exercise to get this into your playing, right, is just play 4 notes on each string moving down. Now, I'm going to fret them on the 3rd fret here, okay, for no specific reason other than I don't want to just play open notes because sometimes open strings are just a bit unwieldy sometimes. Okay, so I'm going to fret them on the 3rd fret here. I'm going to play 4 notes with my thumb anchored on the E string. 1, 2, 3, 4. Move to the A string, and as I move to the A string, my thumb rests on the top of the E string here, and now I'll play the A string. 1, 2, 3, 4. On the D string, 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the G string, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you can go back down. The key thing here is to get that move, okay? So the thumb here is hopping between the top of the pickup and on the E string. Now, you might want to as well, and I do this, actually when I move down to that G string there, my thumb pops over and sits on the A string sometimes, and even sometimes on the D string. Check this out. So as I'm playing down, my thumb actually moves down with me. So again, make sure that that thumb is anchored on something. At the very least, you want it to be anchored on the top of the pickup and then jump into that E string, or do what I do and have it hop over the strings as you move down. Now, the next mistake is actually to do with the way that you pluck the string. And again, this is something that beginners suffer from and people that aren't beginners as well. So I recommend using rest strokes when starting out. Now, a rest stroke is when you pluck a string. So I'm plucking the A string here, as you can see, and my finger is going to pluck the A string and then rest on the string underneath it, okay? See, it's resting there. So I can play this note, and then the finger comes to rest on this one here. If I played it up here on the G string, it would be, and my finger is coming to rest on the D string. The opposite of a rest stroke, if you're wondering, is what's called a free stroke, where you play and the finger actually moves into up into the air. It's not resting on anything, okay? Like these are free strokes. Looks like a kind of little running man, okay? And the rest strokes are more when it drops into the string underneath it, okay? And just to get this movement down, I recommend just taking that exercise there, okay? I'm playing the C on the A string here, so 3rd fret on the A string, and I'm just going 1, 2, 3, 4. So index, middle, index, middle, index, middle, index, middle. You can do it real slow if you want. Index, middle, index, middle, index, middle. Make sure you're not tickling it, as in like this. You know, it's not like really super light or anything, but it's not so hard you can hear it clacking either. It's just a nice, firm movement as you pass through the string, yeah? Now, before we get into mistake number 4, which is again another really, really common mistake, which screws a load of people over, before we get onto that, right, I also want to mention that you can actually get completely free access to a resource we've put together for you called the SBL Bass Toolkit. And the Bass Toolkit includes loads of amazing resources, like a mini course on how to understand the modes and what they really are. If you've heard anybody talking about the modes, it's like this mystical thing. I break it down so it's dead easy for you to get, okay? So that's in there. We've also got a great lesson on how to get a really fantastic bass tone. I take you through 6 of my kind of like secret tips that I use. I talk about the gear I use to get tone, but also what I do to my basses to get a great bass tone as well, and a bunch of other stuff. Again, it's called the SBL Bass Toolkit. It's completely free for you to get access to, and the link is down below. So just click on that link and you will get completely free access straight away. Now, let's find out about mistake number 4. Okay, so this one is a biggie, and it's a simple one as well, but a lot of beginners forget about this finger, okay? The little finger, and they primarily focus on fingers 1, 2, and 3, and don't use their little finger. It is a big no-no, okay? You want to be using all of the fingers on your hand, the index, the middle, the ring finger, and the little finger. If you watch me play, you know, something like, you know, all of that stuff, I need my little finger for, okay? And honestly, there's so many times where I'm actually just using my index and my little finger. So all of that was just index finger and little finger. Now, I'm not wanting you to go and play that. My point is, if you do not engage your little finger, if you do not learn how to use your little finger right now, you will never be able to play that in the future, because you'll get to a point where you're like, oh, now I'm going to start using my little finger, but your little finger will have just been left behind. It'll be sort of like the forgotten about cousin in the corner, right? Okay, no offense to any cousins out there, okay? So how do we start working this little finger into our practice? Dead easy, okay? Come right up here on the fingerboard. Let's take it from the 7th fret here. And I just want you to play a finger per fret, okay? So finger 1, finger 2, finger 3, and finger 4. Same thing on the next string. 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing on the next string. 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing on the next string. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now notice that when I'm playing that 1, 2, 3, 4, all of these fingers aren't coming off. Okay? Make sure that you're keeping all of them down on the string. So by the time you get to that little finger, they're all engaged on the string. Check it out. Now, the final mistake that I see bass players fall into over and over again is using the finger per fret method for everything. It's great and it fits all underneath the hand and I'm not overstretching or anything like that. But if I come down here, I'm not going to be playing a finger per fret for the most part. Sometimes I will do if the line really calls for it, but some of the time I won't. So don't use the finger per fret method for everything. And in fact, I really recommend using a 1, 2, and 4 fingering for a lot of things. So for instance, if I play a line like this, great little bluesy line, right? I am not going to be using a finger per fret. It's going to be, that will be a whole hot mess. What I'm going to use is that 1, 2, and 4 fingering system, okay? So to get started with this, just start on the G string down here and just play finger 1, finger 2, and finger 4. Get used to that. 1, 2, and 4. And then let's try and play that cool line I played, okay? So you're going to play finger 4, finger 1, slide, finger 1, 2, 4, 1, 4, 1, okay? And then back down. How cool is that line? It's actually a blues scale that as well. Now you've learned a blues scale at the same time, but that fingering 1, 2, and 4 is super important. So even if I was playing that line up here, I'd probably use fingers 1, 2, and 4. Okay, so it's a really, really useful fingering to get down. Now, before you go anywhere, I've actually got a bonus tip for you. And the bonus tip is stop worrying about gear. Okay, if you're getting into this thing, you are going to get bombarded online. You're going to be on all of the websites. You're going to be geeking out all over the gear and what bass should I get? What amp should I get? Honestly, it's super cool. It's super fun to do that, but don't get obsessed by it because even if you wanted to become a professional bass player, okay, you could honestly do that on a bass that was worth like $300 or $400. Now, with that said, again, thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you will be grabbing your bass and getting in the shed and practicing and doing all of that good stuff. And make sure that you grab that free SBL toolkit down below as well. Again, it's full of great resources that'll teach you about how to really understand the modes. I take you through like a whole mini course on that. I also talk about how to get a great bass tone. I talk about the strings, the pickups, the amps, all of that stuff, and also how to, what to do to your bass to make it sound great as well. With that said, take it easy and I'll see you in the shed.